All right, what's up? This is Coach Richardson, and this is Becoming Uncommon. And with Becoming Uncommon, we explore what it is to, be the most successful and most impactful version of yourself. We look at and talk to individuals that are leaders in their field and have unique insight to help all of us and lead others in a very uncommon way. Just because, my experience is that there's no such thing as a clear path and a perfect world, but we strive to make the most out of every opportunity we have. And fortunately enough, we have a mental performance coach with us, Lucinda Snyder. And Lucinda, do you mind kind of introducing yourself and giving us some of your background?
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So my name's Lucinda Snyder. I'm the founder of a company called Peak Flow. And so I'm a mental performance coach that did not have a very linear path to this work, and have been doing this work for 9 years. I left a full-time job 4 years ago in August to do this work. So work predominantly with college teams and then one-on-one athlete coaching on the side.
Yeah.
And
And so about your uh obviously I got some information on your website about your
yeah,
background, which I found extremely interesting, having connected with you. But do you mind kind of going over your athletic background and kind of your experience growing up within the world of sport?
not at all. So I grew up an equestrian. So for those of you who don't know what that is, that's riding horses and jumping over those fences that were
Mhm.
taller than me. I started riding at the age of 5, and that was the thing that brought me joy. Like I was really good at it. I wanted to ride in the Olympics. I wanted to compete at a high level, and had a lot of success. And got to be the age of probably 13, 14, 15, and the stakes were getting higher. The investment financially and time wise was getting more and more from my parents' side. And there was this voice, right, that started to show up that it was like, you're not good enough. I started to lack confidence. I started to compare myself to other competitors. They have a better horse, they have a better trainer, they have more money, right? And so it really wasn't anything to do with my lack of skill. Um, there was just this whole mental breakdown that was happening. And I often explain it: when your teammate is a 1,200-pound animal and they feel everything, that does not make for very good teammate chemistry, right? And so that really manifested into fear. And I didn't know how to explain it to my parents, and they do what parents do, right? We want to solve the problem for our kids.
Mhm.
I'm guilty of that. And they sent me to a therapist, which I tell my athletes, I said, this is the best thing that you can do for yourself, is put yourself in therapy at some point. However, I'm old enough that we didn't talk about the mental game at that time. And so he couldn't, that's not what I needed. I needed someone to help me understand that, like, that inner voice is quite normal and how to manage it. And so, really thinking something was wrong with me, I walked away from a sport that brought me so much joy, and that I really believe I could have been
Mhm.
successful at, had I had the mental tools and the resiliency and fortitude to work through that. And so, at that point, I confidence doesn't then just reappear, right? So those things play out throughout your life, as you get older and navigate jobs and relationships and school and all of those things. And so it took me a long time to work through those beliefs. So that's kind of, when I look at a linear path, like that's my first kind of like, or a non-linear path, that's the first event in that path.
Mhm. And like how old was that when you kind of made that transition?
So I was 15, right?
Okay.
And so now we know, data wise, right, girls leave sport between the ages of what, 13 and probably 16. Like it
Mhm.
it, it tracks with the data that we now have about female athletes. And so
Hmm.
my one of my passions with my young athletes that I work with, um is to give them those tools so that when they start to question themselves, they realize that there's nothing wrong with them and they're not broken. They just need the tools to navigate that.
Yeah. What was going in from like high school, so like high school age going into college? What were some of your professional aspirations? Like, what did you want to study or what did you want to do after high school?
I had no idea. Right. So I picked like, and this is where those like beliefs that we have about ourselves that we get at a very early age start to manifest themselves, right? And so I believed that I wasn't good at math and science based on an experience I had in middle school, right? So I went to Texas A&M for undergrad. I picked a major based on the least amount of math and science classes I had to take. No lie, right? So my degree's in political science. Everyone said you would be a great professor, you would be a great teacher. And I was like, I don't like to talk in front of people, right? Crazy how the world works and your path works. But I got a degree in political science. I went to grad school in San Diego, got a master's in international relations, and then got another master's in higher ed administration. So worked on college campuses for some time
Hmm.
in various offices, whether that was first year programs, financial aid, academic advising. So college is kind of my wheelhouse
Okay.
from a professional standpoint. I've kind of entered and exited the field a number of times. I've learned now that I really was just meant to be an entrepreneur and work for myself, but it took me a while to figure that piece out.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was at that my last institution I was working at, the University of Rochester, where a football coach was just hired from MIT to come rebuild the program. And he was looking for someone to teach yoga and kind of mindfulness to his guys. And a colleague connected us, and I said yes. And I will tell you, when I stood on that football field and they were all like three times my size, and I was like, oh goodness, what did I just get myself into? And it was awkward and it was uncomfortable and they laughed. And then all of a sudden, this magic happened. They got really still, they got really quiet. And I could literally just feel their bodies settle. And I was like, this is like, I want more of this. And so really began to figure out a way how to make that a career. So what I say is I started collecting teams and I just taught yoga, taught them mindfulness, taught them how to be present. And then the best thing that happened was COVID, because I started working from home and I could really dive into like the mental performance. And I was like, what if we take those kind of traditional sports like ideas and run them through this lens of mindfulness and presence? And that's where I started to cultivate, like, this is what I want to do.
Wow. I mean, for me, I connected this dot, and you probably did a long time ago. And I don't know, I would love your insight on this because, and I'll preface it by saying we did a facilitator leadership workshop in
Mm-hmm.
Lexington, and that's where all the horses are.
And that's where I started writing, was
Yeah.
Lexington.
So okay, so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
I learned so much about because there was a good population of like equestrian, like the US equestrian team and
Mm-hmm.
leadership was there and part of their coaching and training
Mm-hmm.
certification people. It's like, they had some amazing people. I learned
I'm
so
sure.
much
Yeah.
about but
Yeah.
what I'm using that to now kind of connect the dots, at least for me, your intuitiveness seems like it comes from the horses because one thing I learned is that those horses, when it like you mentioned it earlier, the feelings that they have in like the level of sensitivity that they have for the person, then when you're around them, like
Mm-hmm.
they spoke at length about that connection
Yeah.
and how it's just intuitive. And it seems like just initially you bring that kind of like that level of intuition from your equestrian background to working with people in the mindfulness. Did you ever, I mean, at least for me.
I have never made that connection. I just thought it was my gift or my superpower.
uh,
So one of my teams, like, they call me, I I'd say this lightly, but like they call me the witch doctor because like I know things, right? And they're like, can you like do some witch magic on the team, And I never made that connection to the horses, but you're probably spot on, right? Because I could
Yeah.
have a whole, conversation with my ponies and horses, and they knew exactly, right? They know
Yeah.
when you're sad, they know when you're upset, they know when you're
Hmm.
afraid, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Like that just, because I think it's so important.
Yeah,
And one of the things that I'm kind of I guess, kick these days is intuition. Like I think
yeah,
that's like a lost art.
yeah.
And it's so powerful, and being able to just have that, like, I think emotional intelligence was the conversation maybe 5 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and I think people kind of got the concept of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
now taking it even further, like your intuition, and being able to cultivate it, like learn
Mm-hmm.
how to trust it, learn
Mm-hmm.
how to build it and deepen it, and within
Mm-hmm.
relationships and interactions. And so that's why my ear was real sensitive to when you kind of played that, those two things
Yeah.
together. So
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
That's
One thing I
cool.
wanted to kind of get into as well is like, where do you get some of your influences, and what kind of allows you or put you in a position to, like, maybe like your mentors, or what are some of
Mhm.
the things that, reflect on your background that you bring to the table today when you work with athletes and teams?
Yeah. So I think I'm a nerd, like, and lover of learning. And so, like, the amount of books, like, if you could see my space, there's like books everywhere. So I'm constantly like learning and reading and trying to stay kind of up to date in the space of mental performance. And I really like that blend, I think, of, I teach yoga. I've practiced yoga for 15 something years. So I teach regularly. I teach meditation regularly, and I think those practices help me cultivate that intuition, and being able to hold space for athletes. I had an athlete call yesterday where she's pretty sure she just tore her ACL, and we're a month before the season. And it was like, there's nothing I can say to make that better. Right.
Hmm.
Like, just holding the space for her to be able to be mad, to cry, to kind of not know what to feel, to spin out. And we just talked about really being where her feet are. And I think that practice in my own life, in I came to that practice through the loss of my son, after open heart surgery. And so that was kind of my healing. Um and and so I had to learn how to move through it. I think the other piece is the mental skills that I teach. Like, I practice every single day. Like, my 16-year-old is getting ready to drive. You don't think I'm like doing all of those skills as we get in the car to practice drive? Like, I use them all the time. And I think with athletes, like, we're teaching in them the skills in the context of track or soccer or hockey, but you and I know they're bigger than that. Like, they're life skills. I have done a number of, like, masterminds with people that are in the space, so I'm constantly learning. I'm even thinking about going and getting another master's in kind of sports performance, just to have it,
Hmm.
just to learn.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, lifetime learner. That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that's, it's funny because I feel that the individuals that we work with, they can tell if an individual that they're working with is like stuck in their ways, like their feet are kind of just dug in,
Mm-hmm.
or are
Mm-hmm.
they trying to expand and grow themselves. I
Yeah,
think, like, people now, because of such the abundance of information, I think they can feel that. They
they
can
can
feel
feel
like,
that.
are you
Yeah,
stuck, or are you like
yeah,
willing to
yeah,
broaden, and do you have that capacity to kind of see outside of your traditional lens? So
yeah.
yeah, that's cool. That's
I
that's
think
I relate to that.
I think the other thing too is I'm very fortunate in that the teams that I work with year after year.
Hmm.
And so that football team that I first started with, like, I'm going on season 9 this year with them.
Oh
And so
wow.
so I cannot go in and do the same thing every single time, right? So
Won't work.
it doesn't work, right? They tune you
Mhm.
out. And I hear that about other people in the field. They're like, yeah, they're great, but like once I heard their spiel the first time through, and now it's just something we have to check off. And like, this my team that started this week, I was like, you guys, you think you know what I'm going to do, but you don't. Like, you seniors, this is year 4 with me. Like,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about the same ideas, particularly in preseason, of identity and culture, and where we want to be and what do we value, but how we do that and the language I use is going to be completely different, which forces me to continue to grow and think about these things and be different if I want to stay connected to them. Because at the end of the day, I have to help. Like, the goal is to win, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
goal. We all want
Yeah.
those championships. I'm no different. So that forces me to constantly be trying to be better.
How do you tailor your approach with different sports? Because it seems like, yeah, you do kind of have a very broad,
I do.
I guess, clientele or, sports that you work with. How do you differentiate do you cater to the different sports or what is your approach there?
So I think, the concepts are the concepts.
Yeah.
The skills aren't going to change. I think the way in which I talk about them are different,
Mhm.
and relate them to each sport. Now, thankfully, I'm a sports kind of nerd and can like watch all the sports on TV all of the time. I think that's from growing up in Texas. So some of it I have a lot of language, but like I had a softball team for the first time this year and like I had to learn, but one of the things that I do is I go to a lot of games, right? I watch their performances. I have conversations with coaches. So it's a real partnership between team and coaches, and a coach described it perfectly, like that role is like I'm the bridge between them. So
Mhm.
sometimes I have to tell athletes things they don't want to hear about their coaches, and sometimes I have to tell coaches some, things they don't want to hear about what the team is saying, so that we're really all like in this really beautiful ecosystem working together. um and sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't know about the softball, so you got to explain this part to me
Mhm.
so I can figure it out, right? And then this year I found myself like obsessed with the college world series, the softball college world series. Like,
Okay.
I've
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
never really paid attention before,
Yeah.
but I got really dialed in. I was like, okay, I know what's happening. So I think I'm not afraid to say, like, I don't know this sport, help me learn it. And
Okay.
then they feel empowered to share because I'm being vulnerable. Like, I
Mhm.
believe that vulnerability creates magic in a
Yeah.
team. And so if I want them to be vulnerable with each other and me, I have to be willing to do that. So I'd be like, I don't understand what a rise ball is. Can you please explain it to me? And then they do. And then they
Yeah.
they feel, like, oh, okay. It's okay to say you don't know something. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
I'm less invested.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before I go too deep into that, I do want to touch on because you brought it up, being an entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah.
was that something
Yeah.
that came natural to you? Because for me, because it seems like obviously having your higher education background and kind of that was like your wheelhouse and stepping into entrepreneurship. What was that like? Where do you get your influences? Just speak on that because I think
Holy cow.
entrepreneurship is at all-time high and is
Yeah.
much more widely accepted now as it relates to a
Yeah.
career path. I
Yeah.
was joking
Yeah.
with my buddy that entrepreneurship used to mean unemployed back in the day, but now it's very lucrative and people see the value in it. But yeah, what was
Yeah.
your path to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. It was. So if I look back, if I kind of zoom out, it's like there's like I could work for somebody for about 5 years and then I would start to get bored and I would need something, right? And so that was usually like my exit point. And I think this is my third kind of entrepreneur um adventure, and I think I don't have it figured out, but it's definitely sticking, like it's
Okay.
definitely working. um I think before it was more like sales type of like of a product, like a brick and mortar, like so.
Hmm.
I I was very creative. And so like I owned a knitting shop, so like after kind of 9/11, I'm really dating myself. I taught myself how to knit. Right. And so a colleague and I were like, oh, let's open a knitting store. That sounds so romantic. That sounds so fun. Right. Yeah. It was a grind. Like I didn't make any money. And then part of that grief piece with my son was teaching myself how to sew. And so then I started designing fabric, and then I wholesaled bags. And so I did a lot of shows when my 16-year-old was young. And then when he was in second grade, it's like, okay, it's time for me to go back to work. Right. And then about 5 years in financial aid, I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. This opportunity, and I think all of those pieces led me to where I am now.
Mm.
And it was finding that that calling, right, of just knowing what you're supposed to do. And
Hmm.
so it's interesting because both of my younger brothers also all work for themselves, and
Okay.
my father is a fourth generation medical doctor, and none of his children wanted to go into medicine. And so my parents are like, well, we don't really understand what you all do and how you all live. Like they don't really get it. But I think it's really interesting that none of us work for someone. And my brother has he and his wife have a PhD, and they taught, and they sold everything, moved to Alaska, and opened or moved to from Alaska to Florida and opened a bodega in St. Augustine, right? Like, so for whatever reason, we are okay taking risk and being like, this is what we're called to do.
Wow. See, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Because I think, yeah,
yeah.
a lot of people don't realize like when it comes, like I think you touched on a couple things like risk for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship is risky, but at the same time, it's fluid. Like
It
you
is.
you I don't think there's a better way to live your life than to like if you have something in your heart that just to go after it
Yeah,
and you'll see what
yeah,
happens. Like
yeah.
because I see so many people almost talk themselves out of those things that are in their heart. They go, ah, it would
Uh-huh.
take too long or it'll be too hard and I don't know how to do that exactly. And what ends up happening is that they do nothing.
They
And
do nothing.
yeah. So you
And
lose
it's
that sense
not
of adventure.
Yeah, and it's not unlike an athlete experience. Like I have to have a structure and a discipline and a routine, and like the payoff is not immediate. Sometimes I think athletes are like, yeah, but look at this person, they had all this success. No, they worked really hard and they did a lot behind the scenes and what wasn't required, and they were obsessed with process. The same thing in entrepreneurship. You see something on social media and you think they're an overnight sensation, but they're not. They put in all of this work, and it's the process. And like I have a bracelet that says process on it. Like I'm obsessed with the process of being good at my craft, the same way
Mm.
an athlete is.
Yeah, no, I love it because funny thing is, obviously we're on different sides of the country, and
Mm-hmm.
through social media, I was able to find you, and
Yeah.
following your content and everything that you're sharing. Another thing that stood out to me is uh, I'm a track and field person, so that's like
Yeah.
my wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think about like the level of individualization and mastering the self. And you articulate it very well. You do a great job of kind of taking that approach. What is some of your, I guess, differences when it comes for you working with individual sports versus team sports?
Yeah. And I think track and swim are like, they're unique in that it's an individual sport, but it's also
Mhm.
team, right? So there's this kind of like, there's a team, but then your performance is individual, and your performance also impacts the overall team standing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think so much of it is about self-awareness. Like the mental stuff, it's about awareness, and the better I can help an athlete understand themselves and why they do things and why they think things and their beliefs, the actual skill and the practice you put in place is simple. I mean, but it
Mm,
doesn't mean anything if you don't have that self-awareness of like, hey, I'm in my head and my inner critic is really loud. And when that shows up, I get tense and then that impacts my performance. Well, once you have that awareness, then we can change the behavior.
mm,
So I think even on a team, there's a lot of, when I work with a team, there's a lot of individual reflection and journaling and paired sharing so that they're not only learning about themselves but each other, because then
mm.
there's that chemistry to help them collectively. But
Yeah.
for me, it all starts with that knowledge of self. Like, all the tools in the world mean nothing if you don't know when you're not present or
Mhm.
anxious or spinning out, spiraling, as they always tell me I'm spiraling. Like, I know what spiraling is, I know, and here's how I know, right? And I do
Mhm.
think a lot of that, again, the intuitiveness and then my own yoga practice has helped me. Like, I'm very in tune to what's happening in my body,
So do
and
you do,
athletes are not.
oh yeah, well
Right.
that's what I was getting to. So
Yeah.
do you work I mean virtually primarily, or is a lot of your stuff in person?
So my teams predominantly are in person. I live in the part of the world where there's a lot of colleges nearby, which is great.
Mhm.
But I do have teams virtually. I picked up a team for this fall in Minnesota, so I'll fly in a couple of times to do in person because I just think it's more impactful, and then we'll go on Zoom. All
Mhm.
of my one-on-one clients are we meet on Zoom or FaceTime.
Mhm. Yeah, and what is like a what can someone expect from a typical session with you? Like,
One-on-one or
yeah,
team.
well, one-on-one, yeah.
So I ask a lot of questions. I
Hmm.
ask a lot of questions. And really it's a conversation, right? It's a conversation to help them get to know themselves and what happens during a performance. I think what what works is because we're not sitting in an office and it doesn't seem like like something's wrong, right? Like you're
Mm.
going to the doctor.
Yeah. Hmm.
um I tell my young ones, I'm like, what's your Starbucks drink? And they're like, strawberry acai refresher. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
we're hanging out at Starbucks. You're on FaceTime. I've got my coffee. You've got your refresher. Like, we're having a conversation. Um, and then I have an athlete portal built out for my one-on-one clients that has videos that actually teach the skill of, so I have 6 pillars in my program, 7 pillars in my program, and so teaches the skill. And so I'll say, I want you to watch these before our next meeting, and then we're going to talk about, if it's body awareness is the pillar, we're going to talk about how does that show up in your soccer game, right?
Okay.
And then we'll talk through that. And then, so in that portal, there's videos, there's also meditations, visualization, breath work, and then resources like journal prompts. I'm working on an athlete journal of like tying all that together. And then I'll give them homework. Like, I want you to track these things. Like,
Hmm.
when you make a mistake, what is your first thought? What is your body? What do you feel in your body? So then we can begin to dive into what's really happening.
Yeah.
And then they
So,
have access to me via text. So whenever something
okay.
goes well or goes wrong, we're talking about it in real time, because what I feel like athletes do is they, okay, I had a bad performance, I'm going to shut it down. And if you have to wait a week to talk to me, you're going to have moved on from it and we're not fixing anything. So
Hmm.
if you can text me, um, as soon as something happens and we can talk about it, like in between races or in between games, we'll try something new so that you
Mm.
begin to see that immediate gain and we begin to change that brain chemistry.
Oh wow. Yeah, my mind's going a million miles per hour with that
Yeah,
'cause,
it's
um
it's a lot. The amount of athletes and all the teams I work with have access to me one on one,
mhm.
and that works, I think, because yes, a lot of colleges have sports psych people on staff, but I think the magic is I'm not connected to the university. I'm not connected to
Mhm.
scholarship, playing time. I'm not
Yeah.
reporting back to coaches unless there's something that they really need to know about, and the
Mhm.
athlete's going to know I'm going to do that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
So,
frightening to think of who has my cell phone number. if I think about it.
No, just don't think about it. Out of sight, out
Yeah,
of
that's
mind.
right. That's right. I'll just
Yeah.
get totally overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah. Just lock the phone away.
That's right.
What I want to hear, I guess, on that standpoint, like some success stories, like for you, what are, I guess, some general, I guess, stories that like you took this athlete in and you've seen like the most growth or where you've learned a lot about yourself, working with those individuals. Anything stand out to you like that or like those?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the one that comes to mind right now is she's a high level soccer player. She was eighth grade last year, and I started working with her kind of in a team setting, and then she became a one-on-one client. And in a team setting, she was kind of a typical like 12, 13-year-old girl. Like, I'm like, I don't understand you all in a large conglomerate. Like, we're good one-on-one in a large group. I don't really enjoy them. And they know that, right?
Mhm.
But one-on-one, and I was like, oh, I didn't know how it was going to go, right? Because she was really kind of silly and goofy, and I was like, I don't know, but we'll try this. I've been with her over a year now, and so she, as an eighth grader, developed her confidence that she tried out for varsity
Mhm.
as an eighth grader, made it, was a huge piece of their success. That team went to states for the first time ever. And she was a huge contributor. And to watch her confidence go from like, I don't know if I can do this, to I'm playing with seniors who are going to play in college, and hold my own and own my space on the field, was so fun to watch. And her mom's like, she would have never even thought about trying out, much less continued to like show up, so that the coach had nothing, he had no other choice but to put her on varsity. Like, he had to.
Mhm.
um Another one, again, soccer. um if I She got really anxious before games, and like so much so that she couldn't didn't want to play, didn't want to go to the field. If I could get her to the field, we were good. So I spent many Saturday mornings talking to her and dad to get her from hotel room to the field so that she could play. And just being just this constant voice of like being present, breathing, be in the moment, like reminding her of what she had done, reminding her of fact and evidence and data. And now she's to the point where we've taken a break. She worked with me for about 9 months, so we've taken a break, and she's like thriving. I mean, for me, that was huge, because I was like, I I just, again, intuitively, I was like, it's not like an anxiety like where she needs a med. She just got in her head and didn't like feeling nervous.
Mm.
But if I could get her out of the room, we were good, and then she could play.
Yeah. And one thing that I see, it's a lot of times it's not so much the athlete, it is the support system. And how do you work with or collaborate with parents
Yeah,
and or coaches, those very influential stakeholders that do need to buy into
yeah.
having you as a resource and being
Hmm.
able to, because sometimes also what's in the best athlete of that or what's in the best interest of the athlete might not coincide with the expectations or perceptions from parents or coaches. So how have you dealt with that, or like what's your philosophy in,
Yeah.
managing that collaboration?
Yeah. So I think, in terms of, I'll speak about coaches first. I think coaches who want to support their athletes in this space will hire me, and they're open to what, like, I'm part of the coaching staff. They see me in that way. Coaches who probably need somebody like me are never going to hire somebody like me, because they don't want somebody like me talking to their athletes. And that's just the reality of it. And that's like, fine, I am not for you, right? Like I am on sidelines, I'm in locker rooms, I'm there and I'm in it. And so those coaches we are in constant communication, before sessions, after sessions, before games, after games. What are you seeing? What are you
Mhm.
hearing? What are you feeling? Right. I'm
Yeah.
so, and I think with this generation of athlete, and I feel so old when I say that, but like, I'm spending just as much time working with coaches as I am the athletes, and
Hmm.
helping make that bridge. So the ones that don't want it, they don't enter my circle, even though they may need it.
Yeah.
Parents are tricky, right? Because look, you don't want to be told how to parent your kid. Um, but I do think they're open to supporting their athletes and their daughters to be the best version. And so I often will try to help the athlete be able to express that. Like,
Mhm.
hey mom, dad, like, I don't want to talk about the game on the ride home.
Yeah.
Can you give me, right? I want to empower them to advocate for themselves.
That's huge. That's
And
cool.
so sometimes we practice that conversation, um and if I have to, I'll say, do you want me to talk to mom and dad? And they will say yes or no, and then I will have that conversation. But I really stress with them, like, I'm not going to pick up the phone and say, hey, guess what, Susie said to me today in our session. Like, that is sacred space,
Mhm.
unless I feel like there's a reason, as in their like mental health concern.
Mhm.
And they all understand that, but I really want them to be able to say it versus feeling like they can't
Yeah.
say that to their parent.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah,
It's
with like,
hard. It's
yeah, what
hard.
about like expectations? Because I think
Yeah.
that's the one and it's so tough because very seldom do I see consistency with what the athletes' expectations for themselves or what their desires are and what the parents is. So sometimes like it's hardly ever like they're both on the same page. And maybe it takes a long time, but
Yeah.
early, like early high school,
Yeah.
middle
Yeah.
school,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the balance. And I see parents get frustrated, and I see athletes get frustrated just because there is that dissonance between those levels of expectation for what
Yeah.
sport is to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, it's about the athlete,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they can go in and own their space and stand in their power and stand in their confidence, it doesn't matter what mom, teammate, coach, dad thinks. They know what they can do. And I think this crazy world of college athletics right now, like, it makes expectations like really out of whack when we're
Yeah.
talking dollars and NIL and scholarships. And you and I know that like, that's probably the exception more than the rule.
Hmm. Yeah. That's not everybody's experience.
It's
Right.
not ever it's not everybody's
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
right? And I chuckle when someone says that their 8-year-old is an elite athlete. I'm like, okay, really? Are they?
Mhm. Yeah. They don't even have real bones yet, you know? No.
Like, is it really a mental
Yeah.
performance issue, or is it really that they're just 8 and they need to go play and
Yeah.
like be a kid? And I tell a mom, like, the other day, she's like, she just needs to be more motivated to train at home. And I'm like, it's summer. Like,
Yeah.
let her rest. It's hot. Like, she plays year round. Like, let her be a kid. She's
Yeah.
11.
She'll grow more and she sleeps, that kind of old adage, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just want to get into a little bit more because like I said before, I love your perspective on the gender differences when it comes to your approach with mental performance coaching.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, can you elaborate on that and kind of share what your, I guess, approach is and philosophy when it comes to working with like team male or female sports and individual male and female sports?
Yeah, I think there are, as females, like, there's just differences in how we process things. Like, I'm all like, we are equal, but we are different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think helping them understand that that's not a flaw, right? Like, my inner voice is very different than my male football and hockey players' inner voice.
Mhm.
But I also know and try to create a space where they can recognize that and have that awareness that having an inner voice that talks negatively to you does not make you less masculine.
Yeah.
So it's interesting in that my approach, if I work with like teams, male or female, I don't really shift it,
Mm.
which is why I think in some ways I've had success with male teams. Because I'm asking them to be vulnerable and to share. And yeah, they might get uncomfortable and squirm. But as I tell them I'm okay with silence, I teach yoga, like I can sit here all day and be quiet. Like it's fine. And like some of my hockey players have played pro and I still have taught, like they have the same fears that my female athletes have when they go to the next level. It's just
Mm.
how we talk about them is different.
Yeah. From your experience, what are some things that you feel like resonate maybe more with your female athletes compared to your male athletes?
Yeah, so we talk about the mean girl voice a lot. So
So
it's
say that
like
again.
the mean girl voice,
Okay.
right? So like I call it with my male athletes, I call it like the inner critic. Like they
Okay.
can wrap their head around that. They don't know what a mean girl is. But my female athletes, they know what a mean girl is. And I'm like, that's the voice that tells me I'm not good enough. I should be
Mm.
better. I shouldn't be on the
Mm.
team. I'm going to get cut. Coach hates me, right? That voice. And they're like, "Oh yeah." So talking, because I understand that and I have it, being able to talk to it and talk to them in a way that they get it. It's like, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with you. It exists for the same reason for male and female athletes, but the lens which we talk about it is going to be very different. Like we're talking about it on a feeling level. With my
Yeah.
males, it's like this is part of your brain that's designed to keep you safe. It doesn't care if you win or lose. So how do you manage that voice? Like that
Huh.
voice is there to protect you. We don't want it to go away, but you can cohabitate with it and not let it take over your performance.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. The mean girl voice.
The
I
mean
like
girl,
that.
they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we know that voice." And I'm like, "Yeah, everybody knows a mean girl." Like,
Do you name it? Do you say give your mean girl what's it name?
yes, and sometimes I do, and it's interesting because they all laugh about that because but I tell them I'm like, I know it's really silly, but it creates space between you and your voice because you are not that voice, right?
Mm.
That's that voice that's there to like, oh, I don't want my human to get embarrassed or feel sad or right. It's protection. But if you can create some space, I'm like, go give it a job. Go tell it to sit in the stands with mom, you know? Sometimes they name the voice their parents, which I think is highly,
Oh no. Oh
highly entertaining. I'm like,
no.
okay, that just gave me a whole lot of insight into your family
Oh
dynamic.
no.
But
Yeah.
it makes it lighter so that it's
Yeah.
like there's nothing wrong with you. This is
Hmm.
part of the human experience, and you can let that voice drive everything you do, or you can be like, no, you know what, I got this. That like those thoughts are not like thoughts aren't facts.
Hmm.
And then we talk about giving them data and evidence because that voice in your brain can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you've done it, it can't say, well, no, you haven't.
Hmm. Well, one of the things I noticed, like working with like high performing male or female, one thing that, or at least I'm still trying to figure it out and trying to give it like a little bit of a framework. But
Mm-hmm,
my male athletes really respond to emotion when coaching, especially like high intense moments and things like that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And my female athletes respond more to like logic and like making sure that
Yes.
they understand what you talked about process. Like
Yeah.
if they have a level of confidence about what is
Why?
actually happening or what the level of execution is or the technical components, they can
Mm-hmm,
like have a grasp on it.
mm-hmm.
They can step into any,
Yeah.
any ring. Um, I don't know. How
It,
does that, I guess correlate to some of your approaches or experiences?
yeah, I think you're spot on, right? Like they want to know why,
Mhm.
right? And and it's interesting because a lot of times a male, particularly I think male coaches, right? I think they can have very loud voices. I do it with my husband. My husband is this big kind of burly guy with a loud voice. And I'm like, why are you yelling? He's like, Lucinda, I'm not yelling. We've been married 20 years. I just talk loud. I'm like, but that's triggering my nervous system. And so I think for a lot of female athletes, we associate that loudness with yelling and being in trouble. I'm like, it makes me think of my dad, and I'm in trouble when you talk that loud.
Mm.
And so I think coaches, like helping coaches understand that, and then helping athletes, like, he has to have a loud voice because you're on the other side of a field and you can't hear him,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
but but helping them, like the emotion, they don't, it takes them somewhere else and they shut down. And so I think your point of like, they want to know why, they want to know logic, they want to know process. When they understand that, they're good, right?
Yeah.
They also want feedback, good and bad, although I think sometimes they only want the good feedback and not the bad feedback. And so they say they want it until they get it, and then they don't like the way it's delivered. And so like that's not about you. That's like, take him. I'm often saying, take the emotion out of it and look at the words that were said, right?
Mhm.
Males can like get somebody yelling in their face. I'm thinking like football or hockey, like they're fine with that. And if they don't get that, that's when they spiral.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I have a hockey player that didn't get that, didn't get information, and that made him like, what am I doing wrong?
Mm.
Where am I failing?
Like they filled in the gaps
Or they
themselves.
made up stories, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not good enough, or
Hmm. Hmm. So what, like, well, at least I have a, when I first started coaching, it was a small Division 1 in Arkansas, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give feedback. I'm going to do an end of the
yeah.
year review, and I'm going to
Yes.
send it. I'm going to
Yeah.
send it in an email.
Oh,
God,
how'd that
so
go?
yeah, I wasn't done with grad school at the time, I don't think. So that was rough because, like, yeah, that I learned quickly about direct and indirect messaging, and yeah, sending my end of the year review via email, like with no context, was so dumb.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
feedback is, yeah, how you deliver feedback is, I learned that very, very early in my coaching career. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think having like, I encourage, because I know some coaches don't, they'll do, preseason, end of season check-ins, right?
Mm.
And maybe that works for some athletes, but some athletes need more touch points, right? And again,
Okay.
helping them advocate for that. Like, listen, coach, I need to check in with you every couple of weeks just because that's what I need to be my best version of me, right?
Mm.
I don't need a lot of time, 10, 15 minutes. Some coaches that I've worked with, like, we've started to implement that so that they have every 2 week check-ins with every single athlete on the team, and they're rotating through just so
Mm.
they can get a pulse on what's going on, right? Because I think, to your point earlier in this conversation, you've been so many places, right? They come to you at practice with so much other stuff that coaches think, oh, they're just not performing, they're not giving effort. Well, it could have nothing to do with sport. It could be class or home or relationship or work, right? And
Yeah.
my job is to help them understand how to kind of compartmentalize those for the time that they're performing. But again, we're human. We don't always do that. Just like, hey, cut your coach some slack. He's a human too. He's been up all night with a 2-year-old, right? Like, so he's not peppy today, right? Like, it works both ways, and helping them understand that.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. What is your future outlook when it comes to not just mental performance training, but as you're working with all these different walks of life for from an athletic standpoint, with it's like youth, high school, and college, what's your future outlook? Like, where do you see the world of sport going versus where it's been, like whether it's
Mm.
like pre-COVID or right past COVID, because it seems like, and I'll share my little quick insight. I was just talking to a buddy of mine, is just the NIL world is making it a little bit more transactional. So like that
Right.
coach athlete relationship is even becoming more transactional at the youth stages now. Like, what can you do for me? Then I think there is a level of disconnect with intuition because information is so abundant. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people can throw things in Chat GPT and watch YouTube and go to YouTube University and just get anything and everything they want. So information is not the catalyst to understanding anymore. It's, I think, how to decipher all the
Mm-hmm.
information. So I see a few different, paths with, how that could lead out, but I definitely because like I love the lens in which you look at things. Just like I said before, having consumed your social media and and some of the other information that you have and resources on your website. But what is your outlook on the future of sport, whether it's like high school youth or college?
I think that I'm hoping that people like me become part of everybody's experience, and that we're moving in that direction. I think, you know, say what you want about the portal. I mean, I think there's good things. I think there's bad things. I also think it teaches athletes of like, we're not teaching them to be resilient because I don't get what I want, so I leave. I do think the 5 for 5 is good. Like it's going to force them to commit to some things. Um, and it is very transactional. And I think that's probably the hardest thing about entrepreneurship is I am not transactional, and but I have to be to make a living.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
for
yeah.
me, this is about the relationships with programs and coaches and athletes. And so um but I think this work needs to start at the middle school, high, definitely the high school level. And we
Hmm.
need to teach them how to be humans. If they can be good humans and have these skills, they can be good athletes.
Hmm.
Because when it becomes transactional and solely transactional, and it's solely about their performance, they're not always the best humans.
Hmm.
And that's not the best thing for programs. And
Yeah.
I, being an educator to some extent, still believe like there is student and student athlete. And I think we've lost that. And
Yeah.
that makes my like nerd heart very sad, you know, because if you're not if you want to play for the power four, it doesn't matter if you're a good student or
Hmm.
human. Can you perform, and what can you do for our university and program? And
Yeah.
I think with some of this 5 for 5, I think we're gonna get back there. I hope.
Mm.
Or
Yeah.
they start to have more people like me come in.
Hmm.
That's
Well,
not this sort of like clinical approach to how
yeah,
we
that's what I was gonna
teach
say.
mental
Yeah.
performance, right?
Yeah.
Because there are schools that have campuses that, that do come in and they do I don't do PowerPoint presentations. I don't like, I show up and I've got sticky notes and pens and whiteboards and, like I want them to interact and learn how to be a human and be the best version of themselves, whether they start every single game or they are on the bench the entire time, right?
Mm.
They
Yeah.
play a role on that team.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah, because like, yeah, I'm constantly am conflicted because it is so changing so much, and
And
so
so fast.
yeah, again, I'm like, I used to think I had a pretty good pulse on, what the next couple years might look like. Now I'm
Uh,
your guess is as good as mine kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
and this is what I
yeah,
do. Like,
yeah.
I'm
No,
in this.
I don't. And I think also like remembering that coaches, like, this is their livelihood. This is your livelihood. This is how you pay your bills. This is how you feed your family. This is how you live. And like, coaches are humans too, right? And
Hmm.
I think that gets very lost in this transactional world of NIL and athletes. Like,
Yeah.
coaches got into coaching to help athletes be better people
Hmm.
and win. We've lost that art of it because it's about the end result.
Yeah. Well, because like, yeah, if somebody wanted to be a millionaire, there's so many other,
There's other
you know,
ways.
yeah, there's so many other ways that it's so much more lucrative. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, the heartache in coaching. I was telling
Yeah.
them, because with it being a 2-year school, I have to recruit them and I have to help them get them out,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I was telling somebody, it was like, every coach right now has had their heart broken. The biggest and baddest college coach out there, all the way down to the smallest one,
Yeah.
has had their heart broken already because they thought they were going to get somebody and they didn't. They thought they were going to keep somebody and they didn't. So
Yeah.
every coach has either won or lost a battle this, like definitely for sure lost a battle.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, like even though there's some winners out there, but they lost somebody and they thought they
Mhm.
were going to get a recruit or they thought they were going to get a transfer. So every coach is kind of going through that heartbreak right now. Like, I don't care who you are, where you're
Yeah.
from.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
trying to shed it, like you said, coaches are humans too. Like we
Yeah.
all, we went through it. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
licking our wounds right now.
Yeah. And I think they forget that. Like they
Yeah.
forget that coaches have feelings, right? Like, no, they're
Yeah.
human
Thank
too,
you.
right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll
And
make
I,
that a t-shirt.
yeah,
Coaches have feelings.
that's right. They do. Oh, they do.
Yeah, that's funny. But like I said, I love your information, your content. A couple things I want to get to know. Before I let you go
Yeah.
is like what kind of thrust you into the social media component of your business and like what were you always did it come natural to you? Were you always kind of in that sphere? What led you to it and how is it going and what are some of your
Yeah.
breakthroughs or kind of epiphanies in your journey?
Yeah. So this is where I talked about like being an entrepreneur is like being an athlete and training. Like I've had to work very hard to craft the social media piece. And it's really only been in the last probably 3 to 4 months
Mhm.
that I've started to see a shift. And that I'm part of again, more training. I'm part of a training program that helps actually sports coaches take their knowledge to work with athletes remotely. And so I'm a
Mhm.
little bit of an outlier because it's the mental performance space, but it's really helped me figure out how to like message and what to say and who to talk to. Um, and I've had to work at it very hard. And I spend a lot of time in this office of mine with my dogs around me, like working and trying. And again, like people see one thing and the work
Yeah.
behind it has been like 8 years, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh wow. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you have really well behaved dogs. I had to go put mine away. They were
Oh, well, I have, so yeah, they are. So I have Great Pyrenees, which are like big, giant,
okay.
right? Like they're sheep guardian dogs. And so really like they just sleep during the day.
Oh, cool.
One is like one is a puppy that's 8 months old and but he's like 90 pounds. He's a beast. He's like to the right of me and the other one's to the left of me. So yeah, they like to hang out and sleep while I work.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're very
yeah,
well behaved. That's pretty
yeah.
cool.
They'll get a cookie for that because
Yeah,
sometimes I
that's
get on
cool.
Zoom and they're like, "Oh, pay attention to me," but
Oh man.
it's nap time for them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
cool. That's good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because yeah, with social media thing, I think people, like you said, you have to be a student of the game, and it
yeah.
doesn't. And I love that you shared that it was something you had to work on because I think a lot of people, like you mentioned earlier, see the end result of stuff and don't
Hmm.
really see the painstaking hours and
Yeah.
self-doubt that might go into it.
Oh,
You're like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
oh.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I just messaged my coach this morning and I said, I think I need a meeting because my social media is not performing the way like I feel like it's not doing resonating the way it was a month ago. And he's like, why? Like again, coached me back, right? Well, why do you think that? Why do you feel that way? Let's look at the numbers, right? And so even though like we all have that,
yeah,
I always say coaches need coaches. And so
yeah,
I have a lot of coaches in my corner that
that's cool.
that help me talk me off my own ledges. And I'm like, burn it all down. Like they're like,
Yeah.
no, let's just look at
Burn
what's
it all
happened.
down.
Let's look at what's working. Let's look at the facts and take your
Uh,
feelings out of it. Feelings are not
oh, man.
facts. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's funny. Burn it all
yeah,
down. Yeah.
burn it all down.
I've
Yeah.
had those moments.
Oh yeah,
Um, so getting into the business side of things,
yeah.
I want to definitely, because obviously I downloaded your guide because I'm going to give it to
Uh,
my oldest son plays basketball.
oh
Um,
yeah,
and, you know, obviously being in basketball, trying to compete at a high level, the mental side became
yeah,
real important.
yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, so he's going to be off to college this year. So
Oh
I'm
yes.
gonna, yeah, he's
Awesome.
going to be being sent off with your guide to help
Oh, I
out.
love that. I love that. Where's he
Yeah.
going?
Yeah. Northwest Idaho,
Okay.
Nazarene. Yeah. Yeah. So he's going to go and play basketball up there. And so,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Congrats.
it's
That's
exciting.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
But so how can people find you? And what are some of the offerings that you have from like if somebody wanted to, get involved with your services?
Yeah. So my website is peakflow.info. And so there's contact forms, there's just general information about me. I think there's some journal prompt, there's some like freebies and stuff on there. So definitely can connect through there. Instagram, I feel like I spend most of my time, and I just changed my handle within the last couple of months. So it's lucinda.mindset. Um, I think because people didn't know who I was. And so trying to like put a face with the brand.
Mhm.
And can send me a DM there. I'm on TikTok. Um, that's at peak flow, but TikTok is strange to me. I'm old. Like
Yes.
that's a weird thing. I do
Okay.
it and then I find that like time suck of like, wait, I've been on the TikTok scroll for a while. But those are the two
Mhm.
easiest. There's contact forms, or just email me, which is peakflow rock roc at gmail.com.
Okay. So if there's coaches that want to get in touch with you, what are
Mm-hmm.
some of those like team opportunities or I guess
Yeah,
offerings
yeah.
that you have?
So this again is part of that entrepreneurship. I thought it was going to be this very like black and white, like this is what I offer. But
Mm.
I think even with one-on-one athletes, it's like we have a conversation like, what do you need? What do you need for your team? I want to know what keeps coaches up at night when they think about their team and their season. And then craft a plan and a program that works for them, whether that's all in person, whether it's a hybrid and virtual, whether it's all virtual, so that we're really helping athletes be the best version of themselves. And
Mm.
so I am not a believer in like a one and done type of program unless it's like a
Yeah.
keynote for like I did that in a training for an athletic conference last year, for their
Okay.
leadership conference. But because that doesn't do anybody good to come in and drop information and then peace out. Like
Yeah.
that's not helping anybody be better. So it's really having that conversation, and they can reach out via the email or contact forms on the website, and
Mhm.
we get on a call and we have a conversation and see what works for them and what their team needs.
Hmm. All right. Awesome.
It's
Yeah, I
very
definitely.
collaborative. It's very
Yeah.
collaborative. And it
That level of customization and individualized approach is like one, I think gives you the opportunity to, like you said, to optimize your effectiveness.
yeah,
And I think like that, for me, that's just a testament to your willingness to try to be as collaborative and as a, you want to be effective. Uh,
yeah,
yeah, like, there's some programs that want to you've seen them like that are more like subscription, that are more like just automated and it's kind of cookie cutter, which
yeah.
could
I
work and maybe
could
for
work.
some people, but this like what you're talking about is like that real human, like that depth that I think helps transcend change.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, is the most optimal way to deal with the mental performance side of things, because again, there's so much information, there's so many tools, so many resources, but the human condition is something that we have to master on our own.
Yeah.
And having somebody support that journey like
Hmm.
is I think a cheat code. So
Yeah.
I definitely, love to see what you're doing, love to see
Yeah.
everything that you have going on. Any words of advice or encouragement for those coaches or athletes that are out there that maybe haven't worked with or heard of a mental performance coach?
Yeah. I think it's like there's nothing wrong, right? Like saying you want to work on mental performance doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're flawed. It doesn't mean there's something to fix. It's you wanting to be the best version of you. And I don't know any athlete or coach who doesn't want that.
Yeah.
But it's how we access it, and it's not because you're flawed. It's because you're human, and
Mhm.
so how do we make you be a better human? And I always say, I can say the same thing that you say to your athletes, and they will take it as like this, like this big revelation, and you're like, I've been saying that to them for like every season. That's really frustrating. I get that,
Yeah.
but I'm not connected, right? And so
Mhm.
being able to have that voice is really fun for me. And I just lost my oh I lost my train of thought. I don't know. It was going to be something about I looked over and I saw some championship rings and I was like, wait, what? Something about that. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it is about winning, but we're also
Mhm.
human, right? Like,
Mhm.
and how do we bring those two things together? Because I think if you look at the teams that have success, somewhere they haven't lost all of their humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Have lost their humanity.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to say again, great job. I
Thank
love what you're
you.
doing.
Thank you. Thanks
You're
for reaching
doing
out.
you're doing some amazing work, and I look
Thanks.
forward to, if not connecting, but
Yeah.
following and supporting, all the amazing things that you're doing. So I love
I love
watching
it.
it. And outside of that, where can when it comes to athletes, so would you recommend athletes be able to reach out to you, or families
Yep.
reach out to you
Yep.
directly
Either
through your
one. Yeah.
website and
Website
Instagram?
or
All
send
right.
me a DM on Instagram and we'll have a conversation.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching. When it comes to, again, Becoming Uncommon podcast, we have another amazing episode with some great insight and knowledge to kind of help, for all of us kind of take that next step to be the best version of ourselves. So, like, subscribe, do all the above. But if nothing else, definitely check out Lucinda and everything that she's doing with Peak Flow. And outside of that, see you next time. Thanks.